Welcome to our Veterans Day Assembly here at Webster City High School. My name is Pat Farley. I'm the assistant principal here at the high school. I would like to thank all the students for being here, the faculty and staff, thank the district for putting this on, and most importantly, I'd like to thank our veterans who are joining us here today. The colors have been presented, so in our flyer here, we're going to go right into the national anthem. So Ms. Dom and our band is going to perform the national anthem this time. If you would please stand. Thank you. I was asked to speak with you a little bit about what this day means to me, what this day means to our veterans, this school, this town, this country. I still remember 20 years ago becoming a Marine. I remember very clearly, and it's days like today that bring back some of those emotions a little bit. Because since that point on, today, I walk with giants. I'm associated with some of the finest human beings we have in this universe. The sacrifice that we've made is known only to a select few. And since World War I, since November 11th, 1919, we celebrate Veterans Day as a product of Armistice Day. It's ironic that as the holidays approach, this day is recognized for celebrating the veterans. As we begin to reflect on the year and the time we've had with our families, we also reflect on the sacrifice that the veterans have made, and especially the ones that didn't make it home. For me, and for all of us, and you young people will figure this out too as you enter adulthood, life is about experiences. Life is about doing things. Life is about taking on successful things, putting them in your back pocket and saying, okay, I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I could be a part of that. And with military service, it's a little bit different because there's some scars and emotions that go along with that experience. The soldier above all others prays for peace, for it is the soldier who must suffer and bear the deepest wounds and scars of war. Douglas MacArthur said that, and it's something I believe in. So again, I'd like to thank the veterans for being here with us today. Thank you for being a respectful audience, and I'd like to bring up Josh Cassidy, our student body president, to do the roll call at this time.
Thank you all for coming to this event. Now we'd like to introduce all of the veterans that are here with us today. Veterans, if you're able, please stand or wave when you are called upon so that you can be personally recognized. Everyone, please hold your applause until everyone has been recognized. Wayne Dewey. He served in the Army for 12 years. Aaron Beeker served in the Marine Corps and believes that freedom means that those that can enjoy doing what they want when they want, thanks to the ones that have served. Russ Naden served in the Navy. He served from 1967 to 1970 in Vietnam. Dennis Higginson served in the Army. He served from 1967 to 1969. Freedom means so all people can live free, not under a dictatorship to him. Terry Hooker served in the Navy for 12 years. He was stationed on the USS New Jersey, USS Cushing, and the USS Bolster. Wayne Fuelbergy, he served in the Army. He served for 3 years and was stationed at Fort Campbell, and freedom to him means everything. Dave Gordon served in the Marine Corps. He served from 1962 to 1968. Steve Pegel served in the Army. He was stationed in Korea. Roger Garvey served in the Army. He was stationed in Saigon, Vietnam. Marvin Carr served in the Navy. He served for 6.5 years and was stationed on the USS Abraham Lincoln and USS Kurtz and Naval Station San Diego. Frank Hubbard served in the Air Force from 1965 to 1969. Lyle Knutson served for 27 years in the Army. Bruce Johnston served in the National Guard from 1970 to 1976. Randy Youngdale served in the Air Force from 1969 to 1973. Freedom to him means having holidays with family. Leo Langto served in the Army for 3 years. He was stationed in West Germany. Don Messerly served in the Army for 2 years. Freedom to him means his granddaughter and his daughter. Eugene Williams served in the Army from 1974 to 1992. He was stationed in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Bill Peterson served in the Army from 1977 to 1995. Freedom to him means his family and his friends. Robert Goretsky served in the Navy from 1959 to 1962. Bob Erickson served in the National Guard. Freedom to him means everything. Ron Keegan served in the Army for 4 years. Freedom to him means that some gave all and all gave some. John Doolittle served in the Air Force from 1961 to 1965. Freedom to him means the right to worship, the right to vote, democracy, and keeping the country safe. Lee Ayers served in the Army for 2 years and was stationed in the United States. Jerry Sensala served in the Army from 1967 to 1970. He was stationed in Fort Gordon, Georgia, and Vietnam. Martin Duffy served in the Air Force from 1971 to 1975. He was stationed in Alaska and Omaha. Melvin Randall served in the Army and the National Guard for 32 years. Can we please now have a round of applause for all of our veterans here today?
Thank you, Josh. I now would like to bring up Drake Doolittle to president of the National Honor Society, we have a table over here that's set, and it's become a custom and an etiquette to recognize those prisoners of war and missing in action veterans who are not with us today.
Those who have served and those currently serving in the uniformed service of the United States are ever mindful that the sweetness of enduring peace has always been tainted by the bitterness of personal sacrifice. We are compelled to never forget that while we enjoy our daily pleasures, there are others who have endured and may still be enduring the agonies of pain, deprivation, and imprisonment. Before we begin our activities, we pause to recognize our POWs and MIAs. We call your attention to this small table which occupies a place of dignity and honor. It is set for one, symbolizing the fact that members of our armed forces are missing from our ranks. They are referred to as POWs and MIAs. We call them comrades. They are unable to be with their loved ones and families, so we join together to pay humble tribute to them and to bear witness to their continued absence. The table is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his or her suppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single rose in the vase signifies the blood they may have shed in sacrifice to ensure the freedom of our beloved United States of America. This rose also reminds us of the family and friends of our missing comrades who keep faith while awaiting their return. The red ribbon on the vase represents an unyielding determination for a proper account of our comrades who are not among us. A slice of lemon on the plate reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the countless fallen tears of families as they wait. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us at this time. The chair is empty. They are not here. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope, which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors to the open arms of a grateful nation. The American flag reminds us that many of them may never return and have paid the supreme sacrifice to ensure our freedom. Let us pray to the Supreme Commander that all of our comrades will soon be back within our ranks. Let us remember and never forget their sacrifice. May God forever watch over them and protect them and their families.
Thank you, Drake. Our guest speaker for this assembly today comes from our own ranks here. He's a current member of the school board and has served a total of 6 years on the school board over the years, 3 of those years as board president. He has been a professor of electrical engineering at Missouri State College. He has been an industrial electrician for the John Deere Company, plant facilities engineer, plant maintenance manager, manufacturing engineer, and a facilities engineer for Propeller Corporation. He served in the United States Air Force as electronics technician from 1969 to 1976, in the Air Force Reserve from 1977 to 1978, then again in the United States Army Reserve from 1979 to 1986, and then again from 1987 to 1994 as a Chief Warrant Officer in the Iowa Army National Guard. He holds a bachelor's degree in industry and is a master electrician. Please welcome Rich Stroner.
Good afternoon. I'm not a podium speaker, so my granddaughter's going to have to follow me as I walk around. I want to thank all of you for inviting me to speak to you today. As Mr. Farley said, I spent a lot of years in the military, a lot of years where I was away from home. I went into service in 1969 at the height of the Vietnam War. I elected to go into the service. I chose to go into the Air Force. I decided to see what kind of an education I could get. So when I went into the Air Force, I was fortunate enough to test well, and I got into their electronics program. I'll be honest with you, if any of you are thinking about going into service, it changed my life. Prior to going in and looking at military options, I was planning on being a wildlife fisheries biologist, and I went to college in Colorado, so things change. When I went in and I tested, and the Air Force said, boy, you've got some really good background in electronics, and they offered me this position, I accepted it. I spent a year in electronics schools working to obtain the education I needed to maintain this equipment. And when I graduated, there was 14 of us. And if you are ever familiar with the military, and these folks are, the military does a lot of really strange things. There's 14 of us that graduated. We ought to fill out what they call a dream sheet. The dream sheet is where you pick, gee whiz golly, this is where I'd really like to go. When the Air Force looks at it and says, well, that's where we're really not going to send you. So what happened is we filled out our dream sheets. I put in, I want to go overseas. I want to get my overseas tour done as fast as I can. There was 14 of us that graduated. 7 of them went to Vietnam. 6 of them went overseas. And I went to a mountaintop in Montana. I was, my first assignment was an assignment with a unit, and a lot of you young folks don't know about this, but during the height of the Cold War, we had 374 radar sites across North America, Alaska, and Canada. If you look up things like the Dew Line, we were all part of the Dew Line. We reported all our information to a mountain in Colorado called Cheyenne Mountain. I was fortunate enough to visit that place once and got to visit the command center for all of the North American defenses. What we did is we looked for invaders coming over the North Pole. We had radar sites that went all the way up into northern Canada, and whether you know it or not, we had one in Waverly, Iowa. They were spread out all over the United States, and it was manned by Air Force personnel trained to look for these folks. After 2 assignments like that, one in Montana, another one in Michigan, the Air Force sent me back to school, and then I got sent to support the war in Vietnam. I got sent to the Philippines to do that. We were in a unit, and another personal story about that unit. In order to be a member of this unit, you had to have an extremely high top secret clearance. So my wife and I were living in Michigan at the radar site, and I filled out all this information. They had to check her family's background. They had to check my family's background. Plus, you had to give all these references. Well, you know, today with your cell phones and all that and all the internet, somebody can search out your information. Back then, they couldn't. So, unbeknownst to my neighbors, one day a knock goes on their door, and 2 gentlemen are standing next to my neighbors, and the neighbors say, "Who are you?" And they say, "We are with the FBI, and we are investigating Richard Stroner." Well, they thought I had committed some unique felony, and I was going to go to jail for the rest of my life. But no, they were just there to investigate my background to make sure I had a stable enough background to qualify for a top secret clearance. While we were over in the Philippines, the things we did, all you young folks and some of us older folks have cell phones. We worked with a highly classified group of folks. We had 480 linguists. The linguists were trained in Russian. They were trained in Vietnamese. They were trained in Chinese, Laotian. We had sites in Thailand. We had one in the Philippines, one in Japan, one in Alaska. We had one in England. We had one in Turkey. We had one in Italy. and we had one that we weren't supposed to have, that you folks never knew we had, but they declassified it in '97. The Shah of Iran had one, and we manned that one too. The ones in Europe spied on Russia. The ones in the Pacific, we took care of the war zone in the Philippines. What we did is 480 people, 24 hours a day, 120-person shifts, listened to everything you said on your cell phone or a radio. They decoded that. They wrote it down. They typed it out. It was then analyzed by analysts who thought, this is important, this is not important. Every bit of information was looked at by intelligence agents and members of the CIA. What they did, if we found out that information was really intelligent, like we had troop movements or we had a position that we had to go out and maybe attack, we had an antenna field that was big enough to put 2 of the Lynx football fields in end to end. The thing was called the elephant cage. It had massive arrays of antennas. If you talked on your cell phone over in Vietnam and we were thousands of miles away, we could tune in and out that antenna array till we got a grid azimuth, and when we did the other 2 sites, we could cross-triangulate that. And in 1973, if you'd be talking in this school, we knew you were in this school in 1973, and we knew what you were saying, and we also were able to write it out, so we knew exactly what you were saying, and intelligent people were analyzing what you were saying. And if it was important enough, we dropped a bomb on this building. That's what we did during the war. Our mission was declassified in 1997 for the first time. After that, the Air Force had a bunch of infinite wisdom again, and they sent me from a place where it never got colder than 69 degrees to northern Canada, where for 181 days it was below freezing. So I worked up there at a place called Goose Bay, Labrador, Canada, garden spot of the North Atlantic. We had palm trees 12,000 miles away that way. It was a place where we had a 9-hole golf course, and it was made, because we had permafrost, all the golf greens were AstroTurf. From there, they said, gee whiz, we'll send you someplace nice again. So they sent me to Cape Canaveral, Florida, where we worked on it in a unit that was a combat outfit, and we used to transfer and fly all over the world to prepare for communication services throughout the world. My reserve duty consisted of working in a couple of different units. Most interesting one, tell you a story, was in a psychological operations unit. I don't know if you know what they are. We're trained to mess with your mind, and that's what we did. We were in a unit up in Minnesota, and we were trained to take over radio stations, TV stations, print shop stations, and make and disseminate propaganda so that enemy forces would surrender, enemy people or the people, occupied people, would come to our side and not fight. We tried it once on forces at a summer camp one time. It worked so well, they told us never do it again, because half the people surrendered. So we never got to try it again. It was unique stuff. And then, like Mr. Farley said, my last career was the electrical facilities officer for the state of Iowa. I got recruited by the National Guard, and we used to do electrical facilities upgrades throughout the state of Iowa, working with the Iowa National Guard. I can't say enough about being in the military. When Mr. Farley talks about having like a band of brothers or comrades in arms, that's what you have. Only someone who's been a veteran knows when you raise your hand their family also realizes, but a veteran knows that at any time you could be asked to give everything up you've got so that you folks in this country can maintain the level of freedoms, the level of freedom of speech, the chance to vote, the way of life we have. And we do it with honor, and we do it with sometimes a heavy heart, because whether we served in war or we served in peace, we always wanted to serve in peace. None of us want to go to war. That's what people seem to think. Oh, you're a soldier, you want to fight. No, we don't want to fight. We want it to stay peaceful. We want to stay peaceful forever. So, like I said, it was a great honor to serve this country. Some of us are still serving the country. There's people still in the Guard and Reserve. I'm still affiliated with the National Guard through the Emergency Management Program through the state of Iowa. There's other people doing other things for things like the American Legion, which I'm also a member of here in town. So, again, I want to thank you. As a veteran, to the veterans out here, I want to thank you for your service. I appreciate your service. I know what you folks did. I want to thank you again for all that you've done for this country. I want to thank all of you folks for coming today. It's an honor to speak in front of you, and hope you folks have a good day.
Rich and I were talking about his service last week, and he kind of gave me a summarized spiel of what he just gave you, to which I replied, yeah, Rich, they just gave me a machine gun and told me to run up a hill. At this time, I'd like to bring up the Purple and Gold Singers, please, for a rendition of America the Beautiful. Well done. Thank you, Purple and Gold Singers. Could we have the Dance Connection dancers up here at this time, please?
can only imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine when the day comes and I find myself standing in the sun. I can only imagine when all I will do is forever, forever worship you. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Whoa. I can only imagine. My heart will I can only imagine when all I will do is forever, forever worship you. I can only imagine.
Outstanding job. Thank you, ladies. I'd like to bring up Allison Carr now. Excuse me. I'd like to bring up Caitlin Seeley, Vice President of the Student Body, for the reading of TAPS.
The 24-note melancholy bugle call, known as TAPS, is thought to be a revision of the French bugle signal called tattoo that notified soldiers to cease an evening's drinking and return to their garrisons. The revision that gave us present-day TAPS was made during America's Civil War by Union General Daniel Adams Butterfield, heading a BIRAG camped at Harrison Landing, Virginia, near Richmond. The first time TAPS was played at a military funeral may also have been in Virginia soon after Butterfield composed it. Union Captain John Tidwell, head of an artillery battery, ordered it played for the burial of a canoeer killed in action. Not wanting to reveal the battery's position in the woods to the enemy nearby, Tidwell substituted TAPS for the traditional 3 rifle volleys fired over the grave. TAPS was played at the funeral of Confederate General Stonewall Jackson 10 months after it was composed. Army infantry regulations by 1891 required TAPS to be played at military funeral ceremonies. TAPS now is played by the military at burial and memorial services to accompany the lowering of the flag and to signal the lights out command at day's end.
Now at this time, can I have Allison Carr come up for the playing of TAPS? Our last reading of the day comes from Dylan Steen, the Secretary for the National Honor Society, the flag.
The flag. Above all, it unfurls with a message of loyalty and strength and love and freedom to those below. Red for valor, white for purity, blue for honest. It is the heart, the soul of all America. Neva Hunter, Webster City High School, class of 1942.
All right, so we're now going to go into our Armed Forces medley. So every branch has their own song. And so what I'd like us to do, veterans and students, stay seated, and when your branch comes up, go ahead and stand, please. Now, students, if you have a parent or a family member that served in a particular branch and you know that song, you can feel free to stand as well. So let's give this a try. Let's give them one more round of applause. That was outstanding. All right, this concludes our assembly. I want to thank the veterans for being here. I want to thank Rich Stroner for speaking, Pam Ryan for helping to orchestrate this, Marvin Carr and Luann Jackson for coordinating with the veterans, Rachel Dahm, Andrew Witherspoon, and the Webster City High School students for sharing their musical talents with us, Becky Harfs and the members of the Dance Connection, Jeff Pagel, Travis Hurt, Jose Rivera, and Kevin Farwell for setting up the gym, Todd and Lori Hartnett, Amanda Nichols and Pam Johnson, and Courtney Hippen for the assistance at our reception, and the entire Webster City High School staff for your flexibility and willingness in participating today.